Like, even though they've seen this story many times where things are up and down in this industry, they ride the good times, and then as soon as it got bad, they were like, dude, they weren't prepared.
I think my biggest lesson from all this is that I'm going to be very mindful of how I spend going into that season, because when you get to a point where you make more money than you've ever made, it's very easy to think that money will always be that easy to make.
Problem about that too, bro, is that when things are good, why is it that people like you, myself, others who are at the top of the industry, why is it that we get these windfalls versus somebody else does okay, but doesn't like fully capture the opportunity?
Of building wealth and a lot of other things that I align with. I got Neel Dhingra. What's up, man?
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, so I think it's been, I don't even know, a couple of years since your first time on the show. It was the Ryan Pineda show back then.
Yeah.
And
almost 3 years now.
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah. Now you moved to Vegas.
Yep.
You're going to church now.
Yes, sir.
Dude, you got like your life's completely different from 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great point too to start with, is like I was in Reno for my whole life and kind of felt like out of place. Like there's not much going on here. It's a great town to like raise kids in and have a family, but there wasn't much going on. And I was always having to travel. And then as my business started taking off and as I started to get more opportunities to speak and to do more networking, I was just on the road so much. And then we're like, well, we need to move to a bigger city. And like my wife's from Vegas originally, and we were always down here to visit her family. We're like, well, why don't we just get a second home in Vegas? So we bought a second home in Vegas in 2022. And then we're like, well, why don't we just live here? So then we just moved here.
Nice.
Yeah. But you know what's weird is like, you know, when you're growing up, if you have kids, people can relate to this. People will say, hey, you can't move until the kids are out of school. You know, like, or you need to stay, like, maybe you don't want to disrupt everything because they have their friends in school.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people say that. Like my parents would tell me that. But I found out, dude, they're fine. Like they made new friends in like 1 month. They have new friends. Yeah, we still miss their old friends. Like they come visit us, but like the kids were fine within a month.
Well, and also they have social media now, so they can keep up with them and everything. Like, it's like I keep up with all my internet friends, like all the time.
My son is like on these games online, you know, streaming.
Yeah,
like it's like they never missed a beat. Like they were good. So it's just a different time. I think like if you're in a small town somewhere and there's not much going on, I would literally say like just move to a bigger city, and you'll see like so many more opportunities. This Vegas is, I think, 10 times the size in terms of population than Reno.
Yeah. I think we're almost at 3 million.
Yeah, so like Reno's somewhere at 300,000-400,000.
Yep.
So it's just totally different.
A lot more opportunity for sure. So, you know, when we first met 3 years ago, you were just getting into content, and you were already starting to see it impact your business. You know, it had, you know, taking your mortgage business to 7 figures and multiple 7 figures, and just purely based on just putting out content. Yeah. And, you know, as a mortgage guy, obviously the market has changed the last 2 years. You know, people aren't refinancing. There's just not as many transactions happening. Yeah. So what are you seeing in the market right now?
So this is the interesting part is, I think we saw about half, I don't know what the latest stat will be, but about half the mortgage loan officers are not in the industry anymore. They did not renew. They've gone silent. And so it's actually good. It just thinned out the herd. But right before things took a turn in 2022, we reached an all-time high in terms of number of people licensed, both real estate and mortgage. Yeah. And then from that point on, it just started to dwindle. So it's been about a 2-year period. And I remember in the beginning, people were like, yo, this is separation season. You'd ever hear that like in my letter or whatever? It's a long season, bro. Like it's been 2 years.
I know.
You're like, dude, it's going to get better. And then it didn't get better. And and not only did it not get better, it got worse because the Fed, you know, kept raising rates and keeping rates high. And so what's happened is the Fed's doing that. Also, inflation data was not cooperating. So basically what happened is rates stayed higher than what people thought they would go for, and for longer than what people thought it could be. Yep. And because of that, you just saw extreme like slowdown in the business. Yeah. A lot of companies went under, a lot of consolidation, companies merging, number of transactions just went way down. We were actually able to like still be profitable and do well because of brand. Yeah. Because of the relationships.
You didn't have such huge marketing expense that all these other guys have.
Yeah. So a lot of people buying leads and paying for ads and all this stuff. If you had a personal brand, it's like it really was your insurance policy during a slowdown. Yeah. And so we were able to do well compared to our competition, and then it allowed us to stay profitable, do well, and then now things have turned around. Like it's not crazy busy, but there are people refinancing because people are sitting on a lot of equity.
Yep.
But they're also sitting on a lot of debt.
Yeah.
So what happened was like they're not willing to give up their 3% loan to pull out equity. But then as it's come back closer to 5, like low 6s and 5s, now people are starting to do it.
Yeah. And I think also too, those people can get a line of credit and other things and not touch their 3%.
Yeah, and then there's still the purchase market is still pretty strong. Like there's still deals out there. The biggest thing we were having a difficulty with last year was the lack of inventory.
Yeah.
So nobody was selling because they're all stuck in their current house. We did a lot of new home build deals, relationships with builders, that kind of thing has been really helpful. But yeah, it's just both are starting to pick up now.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned like the 2-year period because I was thinking the same thing. People are like, oh yeah, when real estate gets tough and you go through a tough time, that's the best time to be, in the game and an investor. I was like, yeah, no, I didn't feel that.
Yeah, that was not the case.
I'm pretty good at what I do. And it was really, really, really hard for me. And if it's hard for a guy who's pretty good, what's it like for the other, like you said, the 50% who don't even exist anymore?
Well, what was crazy, bro, was there were so many people in real estate mortgage, and then also it spread to all the other industries once everything was slow, where they were telling me, and they were during the good times, they were like, man, I'm doing great. You see them in the flashy cars and the watches and, the flexing on social media. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you start to see these people kind of go quiet. And then I noticed this a lot when we have our events that we do for the industry.
Yep.
And the first year of the slowdown, the event, it was still busy, people coming out, but I started to see people like say, hey, I don't know if I can make it this year. Budgets are tight. The next year I did it, people were literally telling me like, bro, I don't know, like I'm worried about like my monthly expenses this month. I can't travel to Vegas and come to your event. I was like, oh, dude, I thought you were rich. Like you were just talking about like you make millions. And then now all of a sudden, so I think a lot of people, maybe their expenses were too high during the good times, or they were just lying, bullshitting, putting out this fake image. And so as soon as the tough times hit and stayed, like it just washed out a lot of people.
Yeah. You know what's interesting now for me anyways, I've been in real estate for almost 15 years and, an investor for 10. And so I went through 2015 to about 2018 where I saw nothing but going up. And then 2018, they changed rates a little bit, nothing like what happened in 22. And I experienced my first like, whoa, that was like a little mini dip.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a recession, I would say, but it was a dip. And so I had my first experience where, real estate doesn't always go up. It can go down a little bit. People get scared and everything. And so I learned lessons from that. So then, 2019 ends up being good. And then 2020 ends up like leading into this new age of just infinite money, low rates, and then we just kill it for years. And then boom, interest rates double at the middle end of 2022. And then, now we've been in this 2-year period where it's been way longer than everyone thought. Yeah. Rates have stayed high. They're finally, coming down. Transaction volume is increasing, and I'm starting to see it turn a corner as well. But, long story short, I just look at it and I kind of like look at my lifestyle and everything else. And it reminded me that like, even I think we're all guilty of it. When things are good, our lifestyle always creeps up with it. And so I've had to always just look at myself and be like, hey, I don't think I need like all these cars. Like I never did in the beginning. And then somehow I accumulated all this crap along the way, Louis Vuitton bags and, just random stuff that I never even really cared for.
Yeah, I think like we all like the nicer things. Like, it'd be cool when you go to Mexico to go private versus regular. Like these are like cool things that you kind of felt like you were able to do when money's just flowing in.
Yeah.
But then, like you realize, do I really want to spend 20 grand on this? Do we really need this thing for the house? Or, you start to just second guess those things. And I think that's what was needed for the economy to slow down was like, it felt really weird. Like the reason why it took 2 years, bro, and it's still taking time for this whole like excess to come out of the economy is there's people with so much money carrying the load. So like, I remember talking to people who are middle class, just people in my network, and they're like, bro, I'm not traveling as much. I'm not going on vacations. I'm not spending money anymore like that. Like we're in tough times. And then you'll talk to people with wealth, and they're the ones paying top dollar for the hotels. Like the flights are sold out. The hotels are full if you're in that top category. And so those people, like it took longer for them to like start cutting back.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Some people started to like get tapped out credit card wise and debt wise, and then other people who are wealthy started to feel like you and I, like we're fine financially, but maybe we just don't want to waste money as much anymore.
Exactly. And that's for sure. I think you saw in 22, early 23, like people who, like you said, the middle class would be the best way to explain it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, dude, like, no, dude, I'm done.
Yep.
And we service a lot of the middle class with real estate, with education, with people trying new opportunities and, you know, all these things. And so I saw that from a provider standpoint to see like, oh, consumers don't want to spend as much. Same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's harder to get people to events and all these other things. And then, yeah, I saw it on the wealthy side, say a year later, even in my own life where I'm like, okay, because in my mind, I'll just tell you my rationale. I knew it was going to be hard when rates doubled and everything. And so I was prepared for it. But in my mind, I thought it was about a year and then things would be square.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be longer than we think. I need to really like plan that things could get really bad. So I need to start cutting back in preparation that it could be far worse than I think.
Yeah. So it's like, I remember in the mortgage side, during the year when it was really like our 2021 was our biggest year ever.
Yeah.
And then 2022, the beginning was still pretty good. I remember in the beginning of 2022, I'm like, man, some shit's not going to be this good forever. I mean, I even posted a video December 2021 saying, hey, if you're in this industry, real estate or mortgage, be prepared for when the effect of higher rates. And I remember saying in that video, what would 5% do to your business? Turns out we went to 7, almost 8. Like I never thought it would go that high. I thought we would go from like 2s and 3s to 5.
Yeah.
5's great, bro. Like
I wish, okay.
I wish it would have stopped there, but it kept going. But I remember saying that and people were like, yeah, dude, I'll be okay. But what I did with our business was just build like a nest egg. Like, dude, we had a really good cushion so we don't have to fire people right away. You could ride out the storm.
Yeah.
You end up still having to cut back, but like, I feel like I don't know why, but people were caught off guard. Like, even though they've seen this story many times where things are up and down in this industry, they ride the good times, and then as soon as it got bad, they were like, dude, they weren't prepared.
Yeah.
And it was just a sad thing to see. Like, a lot of people just kind of got washed out.
Yeah. I think my biggest lesson from all this is that, you know, obviously it's been tough times, but there's going to be good times here coming soon.
Yep.
Hopefully 2025.
Yeah.
Right. But I've realized when those good times happen and things are easy,
Yeah.
I'm going to be very mindful of how I spend going into that season, because I think that when you get to a point where you make more money than you've ever made, which would have been the case for you and I and many others, pretty much everyone, I would assume, right?
Anybody in the game.
It's very easy to think that money will always be that easy to make, and that, you know, we're going to be in this environment that always has the wind at our back and everything else. And so
the other problem about that too, bro, is that when things are good, why is it that people like you, myself, others who are at the top of the industry, why is it that we get these windfalls versus somebody else does okay, but doesn't like fully capture the opportunity? I think a lot of people wait till those times to really put their foot on the gas and start investing. So like the fact that, you know, we've been executing on the brand side, doing our events, like same thing I see you guys doing, and also keeping up with the meetings, like keeping all relationships, even during tough times.
Yeah.
Then when things get better, you seem to get a windfall, you know, because you're in the game. Like I see a lot of people kind of put their head in the sand and they're like, dude, they're waiting for things to get better. When they get better, it's almost too late.
Yeah. Well, here's what I have noticed. I agree. You have to just stay consistent, good or bad times, and that will lead to it. So it's like, you don't have to worry about whether I put a video or not out today.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen, good times or bad. My team is going to be talking to sellers every day, good times or bad. We're going to be talking to leads every day. Like, so the process doesn't change. It's just sometimes it's easier than others. You know, conversions happen way easier in good times than bad times. Now, what I have noticed with the people you're talking about, where they're not prepared, they're not doing it correctly, and I think everybody needs to listen to this. So if you take one thing from this episode, write this down. You cannot market inconsistently, because marketing is where everything starts with your business. If you don't have leads, it does not matter. Like, even if selling's harder in bad times, that you still need leads.
Yeah.
And so what I see bad business owners do, especially real estate investors or realtors or mortgage guys, is they cut off marketing first. They're like, dude, I can't buy any more leads. I can't keep spending on these ads. I can't keep my editing team for my organic content. And they cut marketing first. And the moment I see someone cut marketing, I know they're done.
Yep.
You can't survive without leads. And so if you do need to cut marketing from a financial standpoint, you better hustle and get leads with time, because you can't pay for the leads in the organic or inbound way that you used to before. You better replace them with hustle, because just thinking that you're going to get referrals and people knocking on your door is foolish.
Yeah. And I'd rather cut like other spending before I cut marketing.
Oh, I'm going to cut
brand.
I'm going to cut admins. I'm going to cut things that don't produce leads, that just service leads, well before I ever cut marketing.
I'll cut a vacation, bro. Like,
oh
whatever.
yeah, well that's a given. I'll cut personal lifestyle first.
Yeah.
Right. Then I'll cut the next least important thing, and then I'll cut, like, the last thing I'm cutting is marketing, because that's when you are literally dead.
Yeah. I mean,
and you don't even know.
I bring this up because I see people. They ghost, like, all of a sudden. I don't see them online. I don't see them producing the same level of marketing that they were doing before. But then they'll pop on one day and they're on a freaking cruise. Or I just see people like. They're going on a cruise, but they're not marketing. Yeah, it's like, bro, what are you doing? You know, so I think these are the reasons why, like, when it gets better, people benefit the most. Like, if you and I can sell out an event in literally the worst market that we've seen in 20 years.
Yeah.
Imagine what we can do when things are better in 2025.
Oh, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's game over for the guy who cut his shit off. I mean, I've spoken at events, bro, and it's been like half the audience there. They cut the AV, they cut this. Like, it's like, it's a joke. And it's like, man, I get it, because budgets are tight.
Yeah.
But we just put our event on and we had to spend the same, if not more, this year.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was painful to write those checks, but I knew, like, hey, I'm not going to cut the event down. I'm not going to, like, make it
water down the experience.
Yeah, because I want it to be good. And that's my brand. So that way, when things are better, like, we're the last one standing. I think there's going to be, like, very few people who can actually pull it off in the future.
Yeah.
Because they're getting washed out right now.
Yeah. And that's when you know you have a good product, right? I get people asking me all the time, like, dude, when's the next WealthCon? Like, I want to go. When's the next Kingdom Summit? Like, I'm ready for that. And so
there's so many events out there, and I feel like they're getting kind of I'd love to hear your take on this. I feel like information is become commoditized. Like, you can't sell information as much anymore. Same thing. Like, this is why course creators and people are saying their business is down. I feel like it's just the consumer has been inundated with free info on the internet and ideas, and everyone putting out content, and everyone having a podcast, and everybody having an event or a meetup or a webinar. And so to cut through that, yours has to be really good.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do an event, it better be good. It's not, you can't just throw it up and hope that people come.
Yeah. I just think that what I've learned in business, and this relates to events, content, real estate, whatever, is that business just only gets harder. And so every year of my business career, it's just gotten harder. And the reason I say that is because, as much as we want to say, don't worry about competition, just collaborate and do you, and just, it's like, no, competition's a real thing. Yeah. If I look at, it's funny, I stopped playing baseball back in 2017. So now it's been 7 years. I guess that's not that long. But dude, when I was playing just a decade ago, there was not this many guys throwing 100 miles an hour. Okay. I watch games today and I'm like, holy crap. Every team has like 5 guys that throw 100. That used to be the rarest thing when I was playing. And then a decade before I was playing, there might've been 2 guys in the whole league that threw 100.
Yeah.
And you start looking at it and you're like, holy crap, baseball has gotten way more competitive in just the last 5 to 10 years. Just with new training regimens, with better science, with everything that comes through. These kids have been trained properly since their youth to get to this point. They're breaking into the big leagues at 20 years old, competing for MVPs and all-stars. I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And
same thing goes for internet marketers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like, you see it in sports. It's not uncommon. Athletes are getting better. What do you think's happening in the business world? Everyone's getting better. You want to be a realtor that stands out. You used to just have to have longevity and be around in your market and people know you. Not today.
Yeah.
You better make content. You better have your face out there. And guess what? If some young kid is better than you at it, it doesn't matter that you've been in the industry for 20 years and they just got started. They're going to get your clients.
Yeah.
Everything around you is getting more competitive.
People say, like, I've been doing this 20 years. No, you've been doing it one and you just on repeat. They're not really innovating. They're not doing anything. I teach people in the industry digital marketing and content marketing, and it's crazy how much of an opportunity there still is.
Yeah.
So if somebody's watching or listening, like, bro, if you have not done this and you're like, you know what, I'm going to start taking it seriously, there is still massive opportunity to separate, because most of the people, like you just said, are not implementing. Like, they've been just riding on their experience or their credentials, which don't matter anymore. Like, the only thing that matters is attention. Like you said, if you don't have incoming leads, what are we doing? Like,
you don't have a business.
You got the best system, you get the best signs, you get the best, like, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. I feel like people, like, in the industry will focus on these things that don't matter, like their brand stuff. Like, when you talk to somebody who's a seasoned entrepreneur versus a new entrepreneur, like the new guys are like, they're worried about the website and the business cards and the logos, and they're spending and the systems. The seasoned guy is worried about one thing: getting customers.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
Like, the rest of the shit you'll figure out. I remember setting up my new turned out it was a side hustle to begin with, but then it turned into a huge business. But when we set it up, the education company, bro, it was a janky website, a logo I got from a dude on Fiverr for like $8, like $10 at the time. The systems were garbage. It was like duct tape on the back end. I fixed that shit later, but like in the beginning, it was all about, dude, is this going to work? Can I get customers?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, even a guy like me today, I still do that, So like my newest company, Lead Kitchen, I think we've been public now for like, let's call it 4 months or so.
Yeah.
But before it was public, I beta tested it with some of our students for about 2 months. There was no name. Like, I didn't have a brand. I mean, I have my brand, but there was no brand for this lead service provider. And I'm like, hey guys, like, you're just going to work the same leads that I work. Like, here's the deal. Who's interested? And it's all a test. And then you do it for a couple of months and it's successful. And it's like, all right, cool. Let's bring this to the masses. Now that we've got revenue, results, testimonials, let's go try it for the masses and come up with a brand and a name. And then you go through that process, right?
Yeah. I see people work on the name for 6 months. I'm like,
I know.
You don't have any customers. Who cares?
There was no name for this. It was just like Ryan's Leads.
Yeah.
One of my first guys, Dakota, he's made a lot of money with Lead Kitchen. I did a little reel with him, and he's like, yeah, we just call them the Pineda leads, because that's just what they were.
Yeah.
So it's funny. But back to even marketing, one thing I've learned as a lead gen provider, because like I've always had leads. I just always am marketing and creating content. So I've never had to worry about, do we have enough leads? One thing I noticed as a lead provider is how like this people are. You'll have people who sign up and then they're out of money after a month. And I'm like, bro, I told you to have 3 months. You can't just do this for 1 month. They're like, well, I got to work these leads and wait for a deal to close. And that's the vicious cycle that most business owners live in.
Up and down.
They spend some money on marketing or leads. They pray it works out. If it does, they go through closing it. And real estate takes long. So closing out a deal means 3 to 6 months from now. And then boom, they get a closing and they get a commission, a profit, a check. And then they're like, all right, great, I can go buy more leads again. All while that last 90 days, they didn't do anything to keep prospecting.
Yeah. The sales cycle's long.
Yeah.
So you need a lot of people at the top of the funnel. I feel like this is the main issue with people's businesses. They're so focused on the bottom of the funnel. Is like, these are deals that are ready to go close. Like
the laydowns. I call them the laydowns.
Exactly. But what about the people who are just a few questions away? What about the people who are 60, 90, 120 days away from closing?
Yeah.
They kind of just ignore all that.
Oh yeah.
And then what happens is once a deal has closed, like you said, you run out of those people, and now you don't have anybody falling into that bottom of the funnel. So what I've been like I guess kind of accidentally did this, but now I'm helping other people do it as well, is like, what's your strategy to passively talk to people who are 3 months out, 4 months out from doing deals with you?
Yeah.
What are we doing to stay in contact with them? Whether it's a podcast, email list, content on social.
Just keeping them being top of mind for them when they are ready.
And then what you'll find is, like, if that top of the funnel is big enough, we found that there's always somebody dropping into the bottom. Like, you have enough people there. So I think like that's the biggest takeaway for me is, what does your top of the funnel look like? If you don't have one and you're just focused on this bottom section where you get paid, you're always going to struggle.
Yeah. So for a guy like you right now, obviously your top of funnel is social media and content. But now you have two different businesses, because, when we first started, or when we first met, your content was basically to get more mortgage clients.
Yep.
And now you have, coaching for social media and stuff like that. So how do you balance those two?
Well, what I found is like, when I'm teaching things, I need to be doing them. Like you just said, you're selling the leads. They're your leads. You guys are working the leads. Imagine if you didn't know what works and you were just trying to sell it. It would be very difficult because you're not in the game.
Yeah.
So I feel like I like to be in the game still, seeing if what works, what doesn't work, testing things. And then when I teach it, it's actually proven.
Yeah.
I think there's this big thing that's happened now is like when we present ideas, it needs to be proof over promise. A lot of people promise you results, but they can't back it up. If you can actually show the proof that your thing works, here's the thing I did, here's the leads I got, here's how we closed them.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like that separates you. When you talk about competition, that's the number one separator. Everyone can copy your idea, my idea, but they can't copy the proof.
Oh yeah. And I've been using that a lot with growing that particular business because I'm like, all right, there's lots of lead gen out there, but how many of them are actually closing deals themselves? And
this has been our number one marketing for anything.
Yeah.
Is like even consumers trying to get real estate deals and get them into a house. Be like, guys, check this out. This client just closed on this deal. We were able to get it $10,000 below market value, and we were able to get the seller to pay the closing costs. And the cool thing is, it was in this area where you could get this special financing. So I used extreme success to get more deals. So I think a lot of people don't want to promote the extreme success because they're like, well, I don't want to overpromise to people. But you can deal with all that later. Like, hey, maybe somebody doesn't qualify for that special financing, but then they can get something else. Like I remember doing extreme success example was we were able to get someone to assume a lot of deals below 3%. Like these are assumable loans, government loans.
Yeah.
And we were able to get a few people in there. It's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But I'll be like, hey, John just was able to buy this house, assume the seller's loan at 2.9%, which is crazy because the rates are 7% right now.
Yep.
If that's something that you want to learn about, here's the next step. Now, some of those people, very few of them got to assumable
Actually
deals.
do it, yeah.
But maybe they did another deal. Maybe they got 2-1 buy down. I don't know. Maybe they used some other program. But the point is that extreme success attracted them in, got the wheels turning, and now they're in a deal.
Yeah.
So I just think of like, what are the best success stories you have? Those are your best marketing pieces. Like that's the key. And so when you show the proof, rather than me popping on social right now and saying, hey guys, here's the best tips to buy a house, like those videos to me are dead.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like the reach. You've seen the reach on talking head videos. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
I put out a ton of videos and we get half the reach that we used to last year.
And that used to be your only strategy, really. And
just doing that. So now we're like, let's show the properties, let's show the success, let's show the results.
Yeah.
And then even if you don't get the views, it doesn't matter. You'll still get the business results. So I'm less about like trying to go viral now. I'm more about like getting the right people.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, bro, I don't know if you saw this, when you posted years ago, it would just go super broad with the algorithm.
Yeah.
And you would get 1 million views. But like if you really dug into it, some were like foreign, some were like people that are just not really interested in what you're doing, whatever. So the numbers were kind of inflated.
Yeah.
Now, if you get like 10,000 views, it could be the algorithm's gotten so good that those 10,000 people could be the exact people who wanted to see this content.
It's the same 10,000 that were a part of the million.
Exactly. But now you don't see the million, you just see 10K and you're like, oh, I'm failing.
Yeah.
Or if you're a smaller creator and you see 600, bro, that's a great result because those 600 people are actually interested in what you're producing.
Yeah.
So I think this whole like vanity metrics thing, like I know people tell you don't worry about the views and you're like, well, easy for you guys to say, but it is actually true because the algorithm's so refined now.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I would say too, you mentioned it earlier, but anybody who wants to get in social media, there's still plenty of runway.
Yeah.
But like what I was saying earlier, where competition keeps getting better, it's like, but yeah, you should have started 5 years ago.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, it would have been far better for you to have been on TikTok and YouTube 5 years ago. And it is what it is. You didn't do it. 5 years from now, you're going to say, I wish I would have done it. I wish I would have bought the properties. I wish I would have started the business. I said this in one of my talks, and I feel like I've been very cynical lately. I don't know. Maybe it's just when you get older, you just start to realize things for what they are. But, my cynicism has just been like, it will never get easier for you if you wait.
Yeah.
Today is literally the best day for you to do it, because as you get older, it's definitely not getting easier. You get more responsibility, you get kids, you get debts, you get bad habits, you get obligations. You just have more things to deal with as you get older. Your health gets worse as you get older. So it's like, if you're sitting here and you're our age, how old are you?
42.
42. I'm 35. A lot of people watching this are in between there. It's like, bro, it ain't gonna be easier when you're 45 or 50.
No.
So when are you going to start?
If you ask anybody who's successful, what's their biggest regret? They'll tell you, I wish I would have started sooner. Yeah. It's for everything. It doesn't matter. But like you said, the next best time is to start now. And I don't think it's cynicism, bro. I think what it is, I don't know about you, but I've become really tired of trying to convince people to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you don't want to do it, if you don't see the freaking writing on the wall at this point, like, I don't know what to tell you, bro.
Yeah.
But what I do have a lot of energy for is supporting those who want to do this. Like, I have all the energy in the world. If you're down to talk for strategy and you want to execute and you want to do the things and you're at our events and you're in our program, like, let's go. I want to talk with those people. But I'm getting really just burnt out on being like, the guy who's like, should I do it? Bro, like, let's get over that question. Like, I'm tired of that question. Let's just do it. And I think if you want to do this thing, ask for feedback on your attempts. Don't ask for like questions on how to get started.
Right.
Like, go do the fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then ask Brian or Neel and be like, hey, I made this video. I'm doing this thing.
Can you give me some feedback?
Get feedback on the attempt. That's where you can get the most help. Those are the people that get the best results because they're actually doing things.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And we were talking about Brunson before the podcast.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how, I'm going to get back to doing longer podcasts, going deeper. And you were like, dude, that one you did with Brunson was like almost 3 hours. And I was like, well, dude, we got really deep. It was great.
Yeah.
But one of the things you just made me think of was when he was here, I got to spend the whole day with him. And I was like, hey, can you take a look at my landing page and what we're doing with this funnel that is emulated from you? And he was like, yeah, let me look at it. So he looks at it and he's like, hey, this needs this. You don't have enough copy here. You don't have enough testimonials. Yeah. I don't really like your headline too much. Like, and it's like, if I'm like, hey, Russ, I'm thinking about starting this $97 a month thing, what's he going to tell me? He's just going to be like, bro, just read the book and do it. He cannot even give proper feedback. Yeah.
So the people who are at the height of the game, the mentors, all the coaches, anybody who you look up to, the advice that they can give you if you're actually executing is worth so much. Because those few tweaks, which took him just a few minutes to give you, can make you millions of dollars.
1,000%.
But for the guy who's just starting off, his tweaks, like, they're not as valuable. So
there's not even a tweak to make.
Yeah, you
can't tweak something that's not there.
Exactly. So you got to start, and then, like I said earlier, start with a shitty landing page, or a bad video. Like, we all started there.
Yep.
I was just doing a conference, and I put out my content, and I was trying to show them how bad I was.
Yeah.
And I went back to 2019, 2018. The team showed a video, and I don't know if you do this with your old content, but do you ever look back at your old stuff and you just cringe?
It occasionally will pop up. So I'll like see it.
I look back, I'm like, and it was cringeworthy. Yeah. Like, I'm like, man, it's bad when you can't even get through your own video. You know what I mean? Like, it's bad. For me, that's how I started. So it's just really cringe. But then it also shows you, I think it's a good thing because it shows you how far you've come. You know, like, hey, I've gotten so much better. So I think if you look back at videos you did 3-4 years ago and you're not cringing a little bit, you're doing it wrong.
I think that's with life, though.
Yeah.
You should look back years ago and say, wow, dude, I can't believe I was that dumb. I can't believe I
made that mistake. Or I did this thing in business.
Yeah.
Cost me all
if you're looking back and those were better days, that's not good.
Yes.
Because that means you're regressing.
Yes. And so that's the main thing is like, how could, like, I think people who, like we talked earlier, who are the people who have been doing okay compared to the competition or even winning during this downturn? It's those who actually are intentional. So like who's like trying to get better?
Yeah, who do you think is winning right now? Because it seems like a lot of people are losing, even big guys.
Well, one guy who seems to be winning always is Hormozy. Like I just went to one of his workshops here in Vegas.
Yeah,
and they do this workshop at their headquarters here, and it's crazy to see how big his brand has gotten over the years. Like he's probably the biggest name in entrepreneurship. Would you agree? Like that he's at
him or Cardone or
one of those guys.
Yeah.
And so he's does these workshops now, and I never thought he would get into the information game because he always kind of like poo-pooed it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like he would say like, "Hey, I don't do that." But I think his brand got so big and so many people asked so many questions that he's like, hey, I got to help these people. So now they have workshops and things like that, and they're always full. They do these every week. Like, it's crazy. And then they have an upsell or like a bigger program. That thing is overflowing. And then obviously it's because he's doing so well in regular business.
Organic content.
Yeah. And he's done the thing in real business. So this is just kind of like a side thing he does for fun almost. And the team executes on it. But yeah, I've seen that, like Cardone's stuff, obviously, like the guys at the top of the game who have brand, their event, like Grant Cardone does the 10X event every year. We're talking about how hard it was to do events. I've seen events fail more than I've seen succeed in the last 12 months. Cardone puts on the 10X Growth Con. He doesn't even tell you who's speaking. It's just like, bro, come to the 10X Growth Con.
It's brand. You know it's going to be a sick event.
And it's full. It's sold out. Every section, every seat, everything is always sold out, even in the worst economy.
Yep.
So we're in the worst economy, especially for information and events in 20 years. And Cardone's event is sold out and he doesn't even tell you he's going to be there.
Yeah.
That's success. Like that's brand. And so, I've seen like little hints of what brand can do for you. And I'm like, man, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be kind of struggling with everybody in competition. It just elevates you above the competition.
Yeah, so you said information and events are in like their worst time.
Yeah.
So, as a guy who sells it, and I sell it too, what do you think's like the future going to be then?
So I think with information courses and passive content is tough unless it's like highly specialized or highly valued. What I found works really well is helping people do things. So like you said, Lead Kitchen has been a success for you because you're actually helping them close business.
I'm providing a service for them.
Correct. So I think if there's information, it's got to be connected with either community or execution. So DIY is kind of like dying. Mm-hmm. And it's not because the information's not good. I think it's also because people don't trust themselves. So they've bought courses, they've bought programs, and they didn't get anything from it because they didn't execute. So they're like, dude, Ryan, your program's great, but I just know myself. I'm overwhelmed and I'm busy. And the last 3 things I bought, I didn't get anything from because I didn't do shit. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to buy this. Like it's almost a knock against them. So what can we do to like be like, no, because we've seen what's going on. Here's the things we've done with our programs to help people get results. And here's the results they're getting. So like, what things could we do with them? So I think of like done with you programs do really well. Things where you're providing a service do really well. But just selling straight information, I think, is very difficult. Same thing with events. Like I don't know what it is about events, but when you put up a bunch of speakers, it's required. Like you got to have good speakers, but the speakers don't sell the tickets anymore. You could throw up you could put up yourself and the biggest name in the game. I don't know, you and Tony Robbins. Mm-hmm. And still it would be like, there would be friction to get people there.
Yeah, I've seen no difference in any of my events, and I've thrown more than anyone probably besides Cardone with any of the speakers.
Doesn't
None
matter.
have mattered.
It literally doesn't matter. It's your community.
Yeah.
And the actual event.
The event host brand.
It's the event host brand. And then it's also like, what's the track record? Is this a good event to go to or not?
Yeah.
That's why it's tough to start one. It doesn't mean you shouldn't start one, but it's just going to be tough. But don't feel like, hey, I'm going to go book Gary Vee and Grant Cardone.
My thing is going to be packed. It's not.
I remember that. I paid Gary Vee for my first big event. I paid him, I think it was $150,000. Mm-hmm. Wrote the check, put up the image, and I was like, okay, let's go, guys.
Time to cash checks.
It's time to, we're going to be sold out. And you think you build it, they will come? Bro, nobody comes. Your inner circle is cool, like they'll come, but the masses just don't care. I think there's so much noise. People see so much content out there that it doesn't matter. So you have to say well, why is this event going to be different? What's it like to be there? Like, what's the community like? And then that's what has been helping, I think, people actually show up to these things.
Right. Well, I think the sales process is probably the biggest thing that gets people to events. Yes.
You have to follow up. I think everyone always kicks a can down the road. So you got to have a sales team now, I guess, to actually get your events filled. And then also just to cut through all the noise.
Yeah.
But I want to make it more about the community and less about the speakers.
I totally forgot that now that we're talking about it. I remember DMing you a couple of years ago. I was like, hey, you need to do this on your page.
Yeah.
And then you were like, bro, that changed it.
Yeah. So I'll give you guys an example. In the beginning, I was doing the events, posting who's going to be there.
Yep.
And giving them a link to go buy the ticket.
Yeah.
And nobody was converting. Like it'd be like 1 in 50. I was like, what am I doing wrong? And you sent me a message. You're like, no, get the lead, like get them to opt in.
Yep.
So change the website to opt in. Also have them DM you, because now every single person who DM'd you, you now have as a lead.
Yep.
And then you can follow up, because people don't buy the first time they inquire about something.
No.
You got to follow up. And sometimes like it's 6 or 7 times that they get hit up with a piece of marketing or a call or a text. And then they're like, yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and do it.
Yep.
And it's not that your thing sucks and you have to force people. It's more that people are just really busy and there's a lot of noise. I think about myself, how many times you get presented with something valuable, but you're in the middle of a meeting. Mm-hmm. Imagine like somebody's trying to market to you or me and they send us a text right now.
Yeah.
We're not seeing it. So they might have to hit us up next week or the next time. So I think people underestimate the number of attempts it's going to take to close people.
Yeah.
Especially on things that like have high friction like events, because you have travel, hotel, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, the other thing that I found really helps with any program or event is getting people success, getting them good results, and then showing that. So like, I don't know who said this, but nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. So like when you show, hey, this event is sold out every year, or in your case, what is it, every quarter?
Yeah.
That's wild. Like, cause I'm like, it takes us, our entire team, to get it sold out once a year. So I'm like, how the heck do you do it 4 times a year? But when we show how many people are coming, they're having a great time, their experiences, the testimonials, like other people want to be a part of it then.
Yeah.
So I want to show more of that and less about like, oh, we got Russell Brunson. That's cool. Like it's required, but it's not going to move tickets.
I honestly am not even sure that it's required anymore.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't you think you need good content at the event? Like from other thought leaders?
Based on what I've seen, like I said, I haven't seen any ticket sale change based on who's at the event. Clearly it's helped the experience and everything else, but I've run other events, clearly, like, just workshops and other things where it is just me and my team. And we get, I don't want to say better feedback, but it's different feedback.
Yeah.
It's different in that they're like, we like that it's focused and there's a cohesive message that we came to learn. Whereas something like WealthCon is you're hearing lots of different ideas from lots of big, successful people. And so, both have their pros and cons, One is you get to hear different ideas that could impact you and get you hyped and motivated. The other is you're so overwhelmed with different ideas, you leave confused because you're going to have some differences of ideology.
It becomes a variety show.
Yeah. And they're just different, and then it's like, okay, well, if we hold a workshop and there's a clear intent of thing, of an idea that we want to convey, hey, let's talk about how to create content. Let's talk about how to flip houses. Let's talk about how to build a 7-figure business. Then it's very clear what the goal is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess the
workshops versus events, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the reason I'm saying that is because for the last 5 years, like you said, I've held an event every quarter, and I never intended to throw big events every quarter. It just organically grew that way. It started out as a mastermind little workshop with 10 people in my house. Then it became 40 people in my office. Then it became 100 people in another office. Then I had to start renting casinos, and it became 200 people. Then it became 400 people. Then it became 1,000 people. And it was like, okay, like I don't know. This wasn't the plan, but we're just going to keep running it. And, for me, I after this last one in July, well, even before it, I made the decision to start switching up the model. We had run a season for the last, 5 years doing it this way.
Yep.
And, I tell all of our students and anyone who will listen, I'm like, every quarter you have to ask yourself the question, what's the best use of my time?
Yeah.
Because if you ask yourself this question every quarter, because you should be doing quarterly planning and all that anyways, you can, hopefully objectively look at what you're doing. And because your life is changing, because the market's changing, because your business is changing, everything's changing all around you. So if you just already assume that you must do a certain thing, you're missing the point. You should objectively look at what you're doing every quarter and say, hey, does it make sense to keep doing this? I call it a stoplight report. I got it from my business coach, but every quarter across all my businesses and everything we do, we look at it from a stoplight standpoint and we say, okay, what's a red light? What is something we need to cut right now? Because this is not working. Yeah. We have lots of red lights. A yellow light is, hey, like this quarter, we need to see this result. And if we get this result, then we're going to keep rolling. If we don't, then we're cutting it. And then a green is, hey, this thing crushed. Like, let's think about doubling down on this thing.
Yeah, put your foot on the gas.
Yeah. And so I do that with everything. And so for me, I just kind of like looked at, and by the way, things just become what they become without like a lot of intentionality a lot of times. Yeah. And so, for example, I'm getting back to doing longer podcasts. I unintentionally like reverted back to shorter stuff because that's what I naturally do. So I had to look at it and say, hey, our social media results are worse. We need to get back to doing the things that we know work. Let's quit doing our podcast and let's be intentional and go back to what we know worked. And
most of the time that takes more effort.
It takes more effort. It just is what it is. But do you want to be successful or not? That's the choice.
Yeah.
And so when it came to events, you got to look at the landscape because the landscape is changing drastically. And also my life and my desires and my things that fulfill me are changing as well. So like for you, you've spoken at a lot of other people's events and so you got to see it. I like never speak at other people's events. So I don't even know what's going on with everyone else's. All I know is mine. But I have just noticed that we get such great feedback on the more intimate events.
Yeah.
And people love WealthCon, don't get me wrong. But being so frequent, people are like, if I can't catch this one, I'll catch the next one, right? And so I was just like, all right, well, I got two decisions to make here. One is it takes so much time, effort, and energy out of my team to throw it every quarter. If we only did it once or twice a year, that would be significantly less. And
then replace the other times with smaller, more intimate events.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you give people more of what they want, more workshops. We just did something called Day with Ryan. It was the first time in like years I've done this, but we spent half the day here at the office. We spent the other half touring properties that I own.
Yeah.
And people were like, this was like the best experience ever. And it was so easy to do and way less headache, way less, everything. And it was still just a great experience. And then, we got our All-Star Mastermind coming up, and that's how all of this even originally started. Yeah. And so our All-Stars are going to spend 2 days here. It's going to be intimate. We're going to learn. I'm going to have them present and teach things, and I'll teach things, and it's going to be great.
Yeah. And that's honestly what I saw Hormozi doing. So
his are all intimate. He's not trying to throw a big event.
No, it's an office like yours.
Yep.
They have a workshop setting just like I walked through here.
Yep.
Which is dope. And they bring in 50 people.
Yep.
And you just, bro, it is like if you were coming there for excitement,
that's not it.
It ain't it, bro. Like we go through a workshop on how to grow, a workbook on how to grow your business.
Yeah, I would say.
And they were teaching us financial things. Then they were talking marketing. Then we were talking how to hire and recruit. Then how to scale. And then it got into content and marketing. But like you're fixing all the problems of your business.
Yeah.
And it was work. But it was also like at the end, I was like, he asked me, what's the feedback? And I was like, bro, I learned something. I learned several things. I got some clarity on what I need to do in my business.
Yep.
I met 2 or 3 people there that are going to be
Great
amazing
connections.
contacts. We're doing content together now. One dude who's helping me with YouTube. Yep. I'm helping him with this event, like really good connections. And that was it. And I went home. It was but it was valuable.
Yeah.
Versus you go to some of these big events and it's like, what did I do? So I've been even with the big event thinking like, how could we change up the experience to make it less of a variety show and more like cohesive? So like, hey, this event is going to be about communication and marketing.
Yeah.
This event's going to be about how to do webinars. This event's going to be about how to do better content. And then all the speakers speak on like in different lanes, but all coming back to that main theme.
Yeah. I think there's a few things with this because I've thrown every event you can imagine. Big ones, workshops, tours, Cancun trips, golf with me days. Like I've done, I don't know that there's an event style I haven't really tried or thought of. And what I've realized is, each event serves a different purpose. So when you think about the newbie, that workshop is not for them.
No.
There's no way. They're not going to be excited.
They had an
nothing
application.
to work on.
You had an application.
Yeah. And even, it's like, it's just think about a newbie. A newbie needs to really work on their mindset to believe they can go do this.
Yeah.
And that's what big events with hype and motivation and music and entertainment, all these things do. They feel good. Their mindset shifted to like, I believe I can do this.
Yeah.
And so I think that type of event serves that purpose really well. I also think that type of event with a bigger audience and everything else serves the people who want to network really well, because you're just going to meet a lot of people. You're going to get content. And so I think it's serving a different purpose, whereas a workshop is serving somebody who's further along, who knows what they want, who now needs to be able to go execute it.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think they're all necessary. It's just they're different things. And I'll give you an example. So like one of the reasons I decided to throw less big events is because I think people are liking the intimate ones more, but also because I want to throw more of my Christian events. And so we are going to do something, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the name, but it could change, called Kingdom Nights. And at first, my goal was to make them spend 3 hours and have like a mini just revival. And so there'd be worship music. I'm going to speak. I'll let the pastor at the main church speak. And then I'll probably bring like one friend. And then we'll do more worship. We'll do altar calls. It's going to be epic. And so I would do it on a Friday night. I don't say I would do it. Like we are doing it. I already have them planned. So, that's going to be on a Friday night at a local church, and I'll run the marketing. I'll do everything and get people in the door and fill that thing up. Now, like, what's the purpose of that event? Well, clearly in 3 hours, there's only so much that you can do, right? For me, the purpose of it is to, number one, get people saved, but number two, get business people aware of faith and what's possible, and what they're missing out on. Because I'm not going to go and straight up, go do a workshop with them about faith and be like, here's why you're sinning. Here's how you need to change. Like, that's not going to work. That's maybe for an experienced believer who's like, hey, these are the things we got to work on. This is what we do in our Bible studies, And so I don't want to say, I just say, here's why you're sinning. That's not what we do. Okay. Just to clear that up.
Yeah.
But with that event, I would equate it to like a WealthCon or a big event where it's like, yo, we got to get people mindsets and spiritual change. Like it's going to happen in an environment like this. But then the thing I didn't think about doing that we are going to do now is, since we're already there in a city, we got to stay there Friday night. Saturday morning, I'm going to hold a workshop and I'm going to have it more exclusive. And by the way, those big events, they're going to be free. So anyone wants to come, it's free. And then I'll do a little mini workshop. And I don't know, maybe it'll be like $100 or something, just to help offset the cost of the actual event. Because these events they ain't cheap, as you know.
Yeah.
So it'd be like $100 or maybe even less, or who knows. And basically the intent of the workshop is what we're talking about now. It's like, hey, you want to learn to run your business in a kingdom way? You want to learn what it looks like to be an entrepreneur and still prioritize your family and all these things? Like, I understand how hard it is. Let me show you how. And then just pure teaching over this, like tactical things they can take away.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, okay, I understand both roles are needed. And so if I can give them both within the same, basically 12-hour period.
Yeah, that's huge.
It'll be huge. And
well, you start with awareness.
Yes.
Like get them aware of and introduce them to it, and then get them into the next thing. One thing I found is like, even with the guys who want to execute, they still like to come. I got the feedback from our group last time. They still like to come to the event where there is that bit of motivation and hype, because it gives them the spark. Maybe they've been burnt out. Maybe they've been just going through a rough season, and they need it. Like a lot of people said, hey, thanks, bro. I really needed this.
Yep.
And these are guys who are executing.
100%.
So it's like, yeah, there is some value to just being like, hey, I'm not going to go deep on tactics for the next 2 hours. I'll do that later in the afternoon or tomorrow.
Yeah.
But for now, let's get your mind right.
100%.
So
both are needed.
Yeah, I like mixing them together.
Yeah. The question is just, and you hit on it, and I've thought about it too, is just like, can you make the main event more focused?
Yes.
So it's not just a bunch of random.
Yeah, I feel like that is the
people.
thing. Like that was a mistake I made in the beginning. Just random people.
Yep.
I thought that they had influence and people recognize them. But then it's like, well, why should I go to this? And I remember somebody telling me, And this goes for everything, bro. Whether you're like trying to do a webinar, whether you're trying to host a class for business partners, whether you're trying to reach consumers directly, like why should somebody come to this thing? Like, what are they going to get by coming to your thing? And if you can't even answer it, or the answer is too confusing, it's going to be hard.
Yep.
So like, I just think specificity sells right now. Anything that's broad is just confusion. And I saw this a while ago. I don't know who said it originally, but they said that consumers are attracted to clarity and confidence, but they're repelled by confusion.
Yes.
So if it's like, bro, at your event, there's all these great people, but like, what do I get? Like, and so like, I need to be able to clearly say, no, this event is for people in this industry who want to learn this who want to learn this skill.
Yep.
Yeah, there might be a little rah-rah in the middle, but like the main focus is this.
Yes.
And that's it. And then like, oh, okay, now I know why I should go. That's why I got to be there. And that's with webinars, classes, anything. I've noticed like people even do a class. We have people in our industry, bro, and they'll be like, I'm doing a first-time buyer class webinar.
Perfect.
And they're like, no one's showing up now because it's like, it's too broad-based versus like.
That's too broad? Really?
Well, they're saying it's first-time buyers, but they're like, I'll show you how to buy a house. And what about like, I think getting more specific. Like what if you said, I'll show you how to find a deal, or I'll show you how to buy houses today, but with interest rates from before.
Yeah.
Like I'll show you how to buy homes.
Well, it's just 2%. A better hook.
Yeah.
It's still specific.
It's
versus,
still,
I guess the top of funnel would be, I'll show you how to buy a house.
Yeah.
It's like.
Then first time buyer.
Yeah. Then first time. Now it's like, hey, if you want to learn how to get 3% rates on your home.
Yes.
Right.
Or here's the programs that allow you to buy with no money down.
Yes.
Or here's the programs that allow you to buy with bad credit.
Yeah.
Like, let's just get more specific, and then you'll get less of an audience, but it's going to get you more results.
They're ready. Yeah. They know exactly what they want.
I'm almost getting to the point now too, where I'd rather have 80 people in a room who really want to do the thing than get 1,000 people who are just maybe interested. I know you have to go to the broad to get to the narrow, but like, I'm just like, again, I'm going back to that cynical Neel, where it's like, dude, I'm getting tired of trying to convince people to come to this or learn this skill or do this thing. It's like, no, if you're already into it, let's go. Let's find like the 50 people who are really into it, and let's talk with those people, because that's where you really make an impact anyways.
Yeah. It's funny because every time I've ever had these digital marketers look at WealthCon's website, they're like, what am I going to this for? And I'll be like, well, we talk about real estate, business, social media. We talk about it all. They're like, that is
because
really
in our
broad.
mind, in our entrepreneur mind, we're like, we need all these components to make a successful business.
Yeah.
But to the, like you said, the newbie, or even the guy who's one step above the newbie, he's just confused.
Yeah. But it's just weird because a lot of the things I say don't do what I do a lot of times, because like, well, you did it and it's been successful. And I'll be like, yeah, I still don't know how. Just don't don't do that.
I tried 10 different things and one worked.
Well, no, it just became what I was like, this sounds like what I would want, so let's do it. Yeah. And then, obviously it's worked, but it's just not repeatable. And because I tell this to other people too. I'm like, be careful who you follow, because some people's business models just are not repeatable. They only will work for them. And so that's something I think like somehow I've made it work, but it will not work for anybody else.
Well, let's use yours as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I look at Ryan Pineda 2024, and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to copy what Ryan's doing. If I'm a noob or earlier in my career, it won't work.
No.
It'll actually be a financial disaster. Like, don't go out and do all this stuff. But let's go follow what's Ryan Pineda of 2018 doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm posting a video every day on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, and I'm doing this and this. I'm building, like, you're building your brand.
Yeah.
So like, I think a mistake a lot of people make is they look at successful people and look at what they're doing now, and they try and copy what they're doing now.
Yeah.
You want to look at what they did to get to that point.
Yeah.
So like, let's rewind the tape and go back.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was like, I was just doing one thing, trying to make short form content on Instagram to grow my brand and get customers. Yeah. I wasn't trying to do an education company and doing events and try and host webinars and classes and plus grow a mortgage business. Like that's crazy. That only makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It would be a disaster for somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think like that's a big mistake I see a lot of people making.
Yeah. It's interesting because whenever I'm consulting people, they'll say, well, this guy's doing this. And I'll be like, yeah, well, that guy's that guy. So it's like, for example, they're like, okay, well, Andy Elliott's building his business this way. Andy's a good buddy of mine. I'm like, well, bro, like Andy Elliott, do you think you are Andy Elliott? He's very different. Yeah. He's like one of a kind. You're just not him. And there's nothing you can do to be him. So like, don't try to run his business model. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so like his model is so unique in that he barely spends anything on ads and he just kills it with organic content, his DMs, all the opt-ins, all the views he gets, all the love, all the hate. Everything is this mix of stuff that is unique to him.
Well, you brought this up a few times in your content over the last year. Like you lean more into your faith, what you're doing, just being real, keeping it real, not worrying about who you're going to lose.
Yeah.
When you go into that. And so this has been the unlock for me as well, is the more I am just be myself. And hey, I'm not the big energy hype guy.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd and I'm more like introverted, but in my sense of humor might be different, but I'll just be me and see who that attracts. And the best feedback I get from people is like, dude, I really appreciate the authenticity, or you being you, or, it kind of shows them that they can do it as well. They don't have to be like Andy Elliott or some of the influencers they see out there. But it's interesting with people like that. It almost like, I don't know, what do you think this is? Do you think that you've helped a lot of people in content over the years and build their brand and marketing? You guys have programs on this as well. Do you think that some people just don't have that it factor, whatever it is? Or do you think that everybody can build a brand? Because I've seen both ways where I'm like, man, you're not going to be that guy, but you can be you and it's going to work. And then I've seen other people where like, I almost feel like it's a little hopeless of like, they just aren't, I don't know, something's not clicking with the content.
Yeah, I think I relate it to sports. So there are going to be guys who are naturally gifted, and there ain't nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
They're just going to crush it as long as they're willing to put the work in. And then there are grinders, I'll call them, who are not naturally gifted, and they got a really uphill battle, and it's going to be way, way, way harder for them, but it is possible to have a level of success. They'll never match LeBron's potential or the level he could reach, but they can still get to the big leagues and play and be on the same field. And, it is what it is. And so I think that to answer your question, yes, I think everyone can use content to their benefit for their business, but everyone has a cap to what's possible. And so I think that these people that you're talking about, let's say they're at the lowest potential, I still think they can go make six figures in their business if they got the right business from content. I watch a lot of boring people get leads through content because they attract other boring people or, whoever the case is. Or
just simply because they're competitors and doing it.
Yeah. They're just in a weird niche that nobody's really doing. And, they like talking about it. And so they don't have a lot of competition. Right. But if you're in a very highly competitive market where there's other people that everyone knows. I honestly tell this to people in real estate all the time. I'm like, guys, okay, there's a lot of people in real estate who want to coach and they want to make content and everything else. I'm like, that's great. So, content and coaching are two different things, right? Because if you make content as a real estate investor right now, you can absolutely get deals. You can get lenders. It will help your business tremendously. You talked about 2018, Ryan. 2018, Ryan just started making Facebook posts. That was all I did. And it was like once a week. Yeah. And I saw just from once a week Facebook post deals and lenders and everything for my house flipping business.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about coaching and any of this other stuff. Okay.
You're just trying to get customers.
Just trying to get customers for my business. And it worked great. And TikTok wasn't a big thing yet. I didn't understand YouTube. I didn't, Instagram, I just started. So, it worked for my business. And I think for the majority of people, as long as they stay there, they're going to be very successful for their business. Now, what ended up happening was, I started to take content more seriously. And obviously that led to more people asking to be coached and trained. And so I started a coaching program, and that ended up blooming into the events and everything that we have today. But I get a lot of successful real estate investors who are like, Ryan, I've made $1 million in real estate. People want to learn from me. I want to do a coaching program, and I go, you shouldn't. And they're like, why? And, I think one of the thoughts is like, are you just not trying to get competition or whatever? I'm like, no. I'm not worried about that. because I'll blow you out of the water. Like, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I'm truly worried about is you don't understand how hard it is to do education. And every hour you spend trying to do it is an hour you're taking away from your core business that actually already has results and you're making money. Because this game of education and info is a completely different skill set that has nothing to do with anything you've done to this point. Your ability to go raise money and manage contractors and, find deals has nothing to do with digital marketing funnels, teaching people how you do what you do, being a good content creator, being a good, none of it translates. And I said, and if you don't believe me, okay, and for anyone listening who's one of these, I guess, haters of coaches, like, oh, these guys just making more money than they do, like, they don't even do the thing, like, whatever. These are the cold hard facts. It's like, you're in the real estate space, okay, you've made 7 figures. How many people in real estate do you think make 7 figures? Now let's just talk about brokerage, lenders, flippers, wholesalers, realtors, landlords.
It's the top 1%.
Okay.
Top tier.
Like, how many people are in real estate?
There's a lot.
Yeah, like a million people, 2 million. Like, how many real estate professionals across every vertical are there?
It's a lot. It's got to be a million people.
Yeah. So if 1% out of the million, and there's millions, I don't know, right? But let's just say there's like 100,000 people that are making 7 figures plus in their real estate business. I think the number could be even higher.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, right? How many people do you know that make over 7 figures coaching real estate?
It's even smaller, right? Well, it depends how many people
how many people are making 7 figures as coaches? Like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, correct. As 7 figures, no way.
Yeah, like how many are there? 7 figures as coaches in real estate?
No.
10? 20?
Yeah.
Like, I know them all. And it's almost on to, and then how many are making 8 figures? Almost none.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so tell me which one's easier. Is it easier to go make $1 million actually doing the thing, or is it easier to teach the thing and make $1 million?
I think they just like the idea.
No, they like the idea, but that's even for the haters who are like, dude, this guy's just a guru. It's like, bro, being a guru is 1,000 times harder. It's legit 1,000 times harder than doing the thing. The statistics would back that up.
Yeah. I think you have to, if you really wanted to take it seriously, you would have to take a pay cut, a huge pay cut.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to be signing yourself up for years of that.
Correct.
I remember
to go learn this game.
Yeah. And so I just
if you make it.
Yeah. So if for me, before I got into it, I was doing the thing for years. So making, not just having one 7-figure year, let's go sell coaching. No, it was like multiple years, 19, 20, 21. And then we started, our first event was in 2021.
Yeah.
So this is years into actually doing the thing.
Yep.
And then I decided, hey, I'm going to start doing a small event to help these few people who have been asking me for advice.
Yeah.
And then from there, it got bigger and bigger. But it was like, no, you should always be able to make more money from doing the thing than coaching the thing.
Well, I don't even know that you should always be able to, because...
Or, I mean, not at the highest level, but in the beginning.
Oh, yeah. In the beginning, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Like, in the beginning...
you see a lot of people who can't do the thing, now they're selling coaching.
Yeah.
Like that's just ridiculous.
That's just dumb, right?
Yeah.
But those people aren't going to ever be 7-figure, 8-figure guy. Like, they'll get snuffed out really quick, right? So when I just think about it, I'm like, and this is my advice to all of them, I'm like, what do you do with that data? Do you think that you're going to just be the outlier? And, you could think that, but I'm like, and then that's where, back to, you asked what's their potential with social media. And I go, to be a great coach, to be a great influencer, to be a great, event guy, you got to have charisma. You got to understand what you're doing. You got to be really good at communicating, all these things. And I go, you are not that. It's just what it is. I go, so you're probably actually 1 in 10,000 chance.
Yeah.
Like, maybe there's somebody who's 1 in 100 who has all those talents. And I've seen those people. I'm like, bro, actually, you got a real shot to go kill it in this. But you're going to have to go learn some other skills that your charisma and everything don't help you with. Or partner up with somebody who understands digital marketing and can use your talent and charisma and everything else and your track record to go do that.
So I go a little bit both ways, because some people, I'm wondering, hey, you're not that guy, you're not that gal. But then I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in some of our members where they started really bad. Like when I look at speaking, if I look at a recording of me doing a speaking engagement 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was not that good. And I got a speaking coach, then I got good at it.
Yeah.
And then got reps. So I think you can get to a certain point.
Yeah.
But then to get to like the ultra high level, you got to have some gifts.
Well, and that's the point I'm bringing up is like, so in this hypothetical assumption of those who are being asked to teach people and mentor right now, they're making over $1 million. And so the odds of them making over $1 million in their coaching business is ultra slim.
Yes.
And so my advice is typically, hey, devote all that time you would have been trying to do to the coaching business and just double down on things you do here, because you could very easily make $2 million.
Yeah.
If you just focus that energy on growing this existing thing.
And I would give this advice to people who are crushing it in their thing. If you just want to keep that door open of like, maybe someday I'll like to do a coaching program or something, just build an email list or like get them into some sort of free community, or I just don't put a lot of energy to where it takes your eye off the ball.
Yeah.
Where you have to launch a program, but just say, hey, if you're in the industry and you're interested in what I'm doing, I don't have anything for you yet, but like sign up for this email list and I'll send out a monthly email or weekly email where I'll give you guys some tips.
Yeah.
And just kind of funnel them to something.
I like that. And the other advice I've given is actually what I did in 2018. So in 2018, I flipped 150 houses. And I had a lot of people asking me at that point, like, yo, can you do it? So I started what is now Wealthy Investor, technically in 2018. But I thought that I could just print money by just putting out a course and it would just print money.
Yeah.
I sold like 2 courses.
Yeah.
So it made no money. So then by the end of the year, I was just like, I still have all this demand. Like nobody bought the course, but I'm going to hold an event. And so I just put out on Facebook, I was like, I'm going to hold an event, 10 people, $3,000 a piece. That's it. Right at my office, we're going to break down your business. I'm going to show you everything I know in one full day. And there's no upsells. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I did it. It worked great. 10 people, made 30 grand. There was no upsell because I didn't want to like coach people and have that obligation. And that becomes part of the problem when people say they want to go coach is like, you do have pent up demand. There are your sphere of influence who currently know you that do want to buy from you. So that's why it gets confusing, because you misassume that there's more when there's not.
There's a ceiling there.
There's just whoever's been following you for this whole time, they're ready to do it. And that's where I was. So I did it. And it was great, but they were good. Like it was fine. And then, I still didn't sell any courses the next year. Like nothing really happened. And then at the end of that year, I go, let's just do that again. And so I ran an event. It was at my Big Bear cabins, 10 people, 5,000 this time. And I let them stay at my cabins, my Airbnbs and everything. And then it was a cool event and 50 grand. So like my first 2 years in education, I made less than $100,000. And I made millions flipping houses. And the point I bring that up is because I didn't want to take my eye off the ball. And I wanted to just devote to being better at flipping houses and everything. And I didn't want the obligation of, oh man, I just sold this guy a year of coaching, for 10 grand. And this is not worth my time. Because that's inevitably what ends up happening. They sell months or a year of coaching. And then they have that big launch and maybe they make 50 grand. And now they got to go service all these people for the next year for 50 grand.
Yeah.
And if you're making $1 million, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And then they realize there is no other pent up demand. Like they got to actually run ads now. They got to create content. They got to do all this stuff. And I'm like, it's exactly what happens.
Yeah. It's not like the best business decision. So
no.
For me, what happened was I started to see people and reach out. And so I did the exact same thing by accident. I said, I'm going to do a 1-day workshop.
That's what I did. Yeah.
So there's no obligation after.
Yep.
Because I'm busy with doing the thing that you're doing. Like I'm actually on here closing deals. I got to take a call after this workshop, and so I said, okay, we'll do the workshop. We'll do it on a Saturday. So it doesn't interfere with my Monday through Friday business.
Yep.
10 people, 5K, come out and let's do a workshop. And so we did that and then it was full, but these are people from the following, the pent up demand. So I started doing that like once every quarter. That was my first kind of education thing. And then from there, it started to grow. But that was just like a 1-day workshop, no obligation. And it worked. But I think that people think that they mistake that. And then they'll take like their biggest month in education and then they'll just times it by 12. But like, that's not the way it works. Like you got luck that was all the people who were in your audience ready to buy.
Yeah, that was the easiest sell you're ever going to have.
Yeah. So I remember my business coach, when I got into more education and stuff, it was Billy Jean. And he's like, bro, don't like, congrats. You're doing a great job, but just realize this is your organic people who are like they've been down with you since the beginning and they're ready to buy, but don't mistake that for how it's going to be when you go to lukewarm traffic or cold traffic. It's going to be a totally different game.
Yeah. And that's where the game really actually starts.
Correct. And so I've just tapped into that now, and it is totally different when someone's been following you for 2 years versus somebody just found you on social last week.
Yep.
And you're trying to sell something. It's an uphill battle.
Oh yeah.
And you got to have a whole system and team and follow-ups and funnels and sequences. And if you're not ready for all that, like,
yeah,
I think it's just like people underestimate. I think this is a big point. People underestimate what it takes to acquire a customer in the education and coaching business.
Oh, CAC is high.
It's very difficult and it's more expensive than you think.
Well, and it's only getting more expensive.
Yeah. And so like they just undervalue customer acquisition. So one thing that you said earlier, which is a big shortcut for people, is partnership.
Yeah.
So like, let's just say you get really good at something in your business, in the real estate world or in the mortgage world or whatever. And you come to a guy like Ryan or myself and say, hey man, I'm crushing it at this thing. Do you think that you guys could help me productize this within your ecosystem?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That is the shortcut. Because now, if somebody came to me and said, hey Neel, I'm crushing it with TikTok and this funnel, and it's generating me all the results, I have all the proof. Do you think that I could come into your program and we could do something together? Bro, we can do a workshop tomorrow. Like I could have the copy, the landing page, the funnel built. I could send the traffic and we could do it this weekend.
Yeah.
You can't, right? Like that person who's asking can't do all that. So you would partner with somebody and maybe you split the revenue or whatever it is. Now you've gotten the same result, but in like a fraction of the time.
I actually have a call with a fitness guy today about that.
Yeah.
In fact.
And I know you've done this with other people. Yeah. Like that is the shortcut. It's just people have an ego and they want it to be their thing.
Oh yeah.
Just like,
well, and also too, this is just about the value of partnership. Most big education companies, the face isn't even the majority of the owner.
Yeah.
There's a back end team that's publishing them.
Yeah. So it's like find somebody with an audience who's already been in the game, see how you could partner. Even if it was bad for you on paper in terms of like you have to give up more per sale, because I think it's more valuable to have the customers. Like there's a guy who I've worked with in the past. He had the audience in my industry.
Yeah.
I didn't. And I had a program to sell. So I'm going to do all the fulfillment. I'm going to do everything.
He said he's promote it.
He just needs to promote it. Mm-hmm. That first deal I did with him, bro, I had to pay him half the revenue.
Yeah.
And the people in my space were like, dude, you're giving up half the money on a $2,000 sale to somebody else. And he doesn't have to do anything other than send an email and host a webinar.
Yep.
And I was like, bro, it's worth it because I wouldn't have been able to get all these thousands of people on the webinar.
Yeah.
So like I would have had to run ads and probably spend even more to get that people. So I'm happy to pay the money. And I think people's ego prevents them from doing that.
Yep.
That's how I got the whole business going in the beginning. That was doing partnerships.
Yep. No, I think it's great. So you touched on this before and actually before I go to this next thought, I just want to say for anyone listening, I'm solely talking about selling education. I still think that you should make content.
Yes.
I think everyone should make content and they should use it to get more business for their current business. That's their thing.
Yeah.
Now granted, if you get really good, this is literally what happened for me. I got good at making content and then that forced me into education because there was so much demand from the organic content. But if my organic content didn't like really pop off, I wouldn't have gotten education. I just wouldn't have.
I would have just need the money. This is the other point.
Yeah.
The people who do the best in education don't need the money from education to start with. They have their core business.
Yeah.
My core business is already making me 7 figures. I didn't need the money from the workshop.
Yeah.
Like people can tell when you're like selling a $30,000 weekend or a $5,000 product or whatever, and you need the money. Mm-hmm. Like it's just the energy behind the content, the pitch, versus if you're like, dude, I'm good. Like my business is crushing it. We have results. If you want to come to this thing, great. If not,
no biggie.
No biggie. Then they're like almost like they want to do it even more.
Yeah.
I've just been so, and I know this because it's worked on me. Like somebody offered me something and I was like, you know what, that's a little bit, I don't know if I need that. And then a week later, they were like, hey, I just want to let you know, I reached back out to find out about it and they're like, oh, it's already gone. Like we don't have any more spots. And I'm like, well, I'll pay. Like right now, I'll send you the wire. They're like, it's too late. Like we don't need you. And I was like, it made me want the thing even more. You know what I mean? So I think that's a powerful tactic.
Yeah.
For people to use.
Yeah. So you mentioned this before about me getting more into faith on my content and everything else. But, you know, for you, you've been on a new faith journey as well. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I moved to Vegas and I wasn't brought up with any religion really. Like my parents are Hindus they immigrated from India. And then we were born here in the States and we just like that, we knew that was their religion, but we didn't really practice much. Every once in a while we'd go to a temple or something along the way, but just didn't really grow up with much religion. But then what I noticed, bro, was as I started to do more events and I started to speak more and do more things in the industry, a lot of the people in my inner circle, they were all Christians of faith. Like it's almost like I don't know, it just happened by accident. But then they started to bring me to like their, like the first guy I started doing business with, he was like, hey man, come to church with me on Sunday or like learn about this. And then I connected with Omar. Yep. And Omar was like, hey bro, come to church, you know, like you should come check it out. Not like forcing it, but just being like, dude, just come check it out. And then you even said, I remember you texting me and being like, hey, meet me at church this week. And I'm like, just out of the blue, you're like, hey, just come and I'll save you a spot. And so I just started going and, it wasn't anything like, oh, you know, here's a change I'm going to make. I just started to just become aware. And then what's cool about it is just I learned just in the last maybe 6 months of just going, I've learned a lot about, you know, Christianity and faith, but then also just really the people there and the connections. And then I don't know if this is the right way of thinking about it, but at church when the pastor will preach and they'll go through the sermon, I take a lot of just life advice or business advice. And so it's made me a better husband, father, and business leader, like to my people within our company. So I've just seen like the effects of how it's improving my life. Yeah. And that's basically where I'm at now. Like I've just started going and then I've seen how it improves my life.
Yeah. No, that's great. Cause I remember when you first started going, like you said, I think it was just you and now you're bringing your family and everything else. And so how are they liking it?
They love it, man. Like, I'll get my kids off video games and be like, hey, dude, you come with me to church. And they'll like kind of begrudgingly, I don't know if I want to go. And then when they're there, they like it. And then on the way home, we'll talk about what we learned. And so to me, it's just been like a good way to have better conversations with kids and just level up what we're doing, you know?
Yeah. You know, what's been weird for me? So I grew up in the church. So I've always just been like, there wasn't really an option. It was just, and I always wanted to go, so it's not like that. But the more I obviously get older, more of my friends are now having kids. And so, you know, I got 3 kids, 5 and under, and, you know, a bunch of my friends are now having newborns and, you know, toddlers and everything. And it seems now that they're like, you know, I actually wouldn't mind going to church for my family, like getting my kids and, like, I think that would be good for us. Yeah. Whereas they, before all that, were like, yeah, whatever, it's not a big deal. But for some reason, family is making them think about it more.
Yeah. And we put our kids into a faith school here in Vegas. Both my son and daughter go to a school. And again, they weren't brought up with religion, but they love it now. Like they're into learning more about it in school. And then I've just noticed like the community aspect of it, whether it's at the school or at the church. It's like, it just seems like good people, bro. Like these are the people I want to be around. Yeah. Like it's not just about like networking, so to speak, but it's like, man, everybody's so nice and just like helpful. And that like, it just makes you feel different about your overall view of the world when you're around these people. So if I'm having one of these like super cynical weeks, go to church on Sunday, feel better, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, to your point, right? The people are different, which is what the Bible tells us we should be. We should be the light of the earth. We should be very different than the rest of the world, right? And people should be able to see it. If you aren't different from the rest of the world, then that's a sign that maybe you aren't, you know, a believer. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I think a lot of skeptical people have a problem with it because they think it might be fake, or they think it might be like, I don't know, but it's just like,
I
either
feel
way,
like it's like a cult sometimes, they'll tell me.
Yeah. It's like, either way, you're going to hang out with a group of people one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so the people you hang out with are imprinting on you, whether you realize it or not. And so it's like, man, if this is your circle and everybody's living life this way, everyone's depressed, or everybody's sleeping around, everybody's doing this, then it's like, you are inevitably going to do that.
Yeah. I think this is like a good thing to know if you're on the right track. So as my the quality of my interactions improved, so as I've had better people in my circle, the people I talk to, my interactions improved, then the next year my business improved, or something improved in my life, you know,
my marriage, my health.
Yeah, exactly. So like my marriage got better as I started to have more better interactions. And so if that right now, if you notice the quality of your interactions is poor, it's almost like a preview that next year is not going to be that good for you in terms of where you're at and your goals, personal and business wise.
Yeah.
Versus like right now, if the quality of your interactions is good, that's a good indication that next year is going to be better for you because you're on the right path, you know? And so I think people need to fix that first. They're like, oh, I need to fix my business. Bro, like your programming is wrong. The people you're around is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And then the business isn't going to fix itself. Like, you're not going to magically make more money next year. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. You know, I've kind of taken the top-down approach. So I'm a huge believer that if you could focus on one thing that drastically impacts the rest of the things you do, then you're going to be good, right? Yeah. And so we've been talking about like hyper specialization. And so if you can just specifically learn a certain skill, you'll be good. But like when I look at, as you just said, you know, you sit on a Sunday sermon and you're like, oh yeah, I can apply this to my business, my life, my marriage, my, you know, how I interact with everybody. That's what I've been kind of trying to say for years on this show, where I'll have these really good psychologist mindsets, different kind of guys, and they acknowledge faith, but they don't, you know, they're not Christians or anything. And they're like, yeah, you know, this is why your brain does this. This is how you have to hack this and that. I'm like, bro, you just need Jesus. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, if you just followed what Jesus told you, if you had the Holy Spirit inside of you, everything you're talking about goes away. I don't even need to read a book.
Yeah.
I don't need to like go try this hack or the cold plunge or anything. I don't need any of it. Yeah. If I just have that, I'm good. And it trickles down to everything. It's like, oh, well, dang, man, why do I have less anxiety? Why is my marriage all of a sudden better? Why am I like now treating people differently and attracting different people into my lives? Why am I like having this desire to go serve and get my family like, you know, more involved in these things? And it's like, it's just the trickle down effect of just doing what Jesus said.
Yeah. The guy, just by chance. And some people say this is like meant to be or whatever. The first guy I reached out to, so I was like trying to start doing content, 2018. And I was going to this marketing event in LA. And there was going to be a bunch of speakers. Grant Cardone was there, Patrick Bet-David, all these speakers. And the guy who's putting on the event was selling the tickets. If you bought the most expensive ticket, you got a coaching call with him. Okay. So I bought the most expensive ticket, VIP or whatever, and he jumps on a call. And the only piece of advice he gave me on the call, this guy wasn't that great, but he was like, bro, get a videographer, bring them to the event with you. Two things will happen. One, you'll be able to start creating content. But two, people will treat you different at the event because you got a video dude following you around with the gimbal. So I was
this guy must be a big deal.
Yeah, I'm like, shit, okay, I'll try it. And this is early in content. Like 2018 is different now. Like you go to an event now, everyone's got their cameras out. But back then it was kind of rare. So I end up going on a website in LA, like some, I think it was called Thumbtack. It was like a job posting board and looking for event videographers, like wedding and event videographers. And I started looking through all the people. One dude's videos looked better than the others. This dude, Eric. I reach out to him and he's like, yeah, I'll meet you there tomorrow. And we're friends today. Like he's been working with me ever since. Mm-hmm. And so this dude, he's a Christian dude. He came to meet me. Him and his wife are like the nicest people in the world. And they helped me through that day with making the content. They didn't rip me off. Like they helped me. He helped me like put together stuff, made a dope video that made me look way better than I was. He was good at his job, but he made me look way better. People treat me different. It's so funny. We're at this event, bro, where I was unknown. Some dude, he told me, like I went to go talk to Cardone.
Yeah.
And he's filming me having a talk, you know, talking to PBD and Cardone. And then we use the footage afterwards. It looks like I'm in the inner circle. Really, I was just in the VIP and got to ask a question.
Yeah.
So as I'm doing this, some dude walks up who's an attendee at the event in the regular section, asks me to sign his book. And we got on camera. I'm like, bro, it worked. Like, they're treating me better. So anyways, like fast forward, it was like a really cool experience and we've been working together ever since. But like nowadays someone will be like, hey dude, God connected you guys, like that was meant to be. And Omar told me this. He's like, I don't know what it is about you, Neel, but you seem to attract really good people in your life, like in your business. And I don't know if that's like just because of these interactions or what, but I've just noticed as I started to interact with higher quality people, you just start attracting more of those people into your life. And so I don't know if it's a coincidence, but almost like 90% of the people I work with all go to church. They're all in of faith. Like they all are trying to live better lives.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Dan Martell because you just interviewed him, and so he's a Christian, and you were asking me, you're like, dude, you and him are like pretty close. Like how'd you guys meet and everything? And I told this crazy story of how I blew him off initially, but then once we finally met, we're great buddies. But Dan asked me that too a couple of months ago on the last podcast, and he was like, why do you think that you're able to meet so many people? And he's like, because you have a really big network in a short period of time. And I was like, I don't know. Like I just,
it's not luck.
Yeah. And he's like, can I tell you what I think? And I was like, all right. And basically his lines of thinking was just simply like, number one, I think like people can see, behind the scenes, like that you're genuine, you want to help people, and like, you'll serve them, you'll connect them. You're always open to, do whatever to help them. He's like, and then number two, I think that people just see like stock. And he's like, if they think that your stock is going to go up, they're willing to invest now and invest into you, and whatever it becomes down the road. And it was just like an interesting conversation about it. Because I have pondered that too, because on one hand, I don't know, I just kind of look at my life and I'm like, I've had like success, but not by no means have I like, made $100 million or like got the biggest channel or any of these things. It's still successful, but it's not like this crazy amount of success where it's obvious, like everyone should be my friend.
Yeah.
So then the only thing I could think about was truly like that first part of just these interactions behind the scenes with these big guys where they're willing to vouch for me and say, hey, I want to introduce you to Ryan. Hey, you need to go on his podcast. You need to speak at his event. And that's how it's always been. It's just like, if I don't know, if I treat one person good in a way that maybe is like unique, that stood out, it's like, wow, okay, let's like that was abnormal. And I think that that's the key. It's like, can you have a interaction that supersedes like the standard?
Yeah. It's like, and then also leveling up to become the person who executes. I've noticed that people in the game, entrepreneurship game, they really respect people who do what they're going to say, like who do what they said they were going to do. And they really respect people who execute. So like, you can't like impress them with money.
Yeah.
Because they're already rich. Mm-hmm. You can't impress them with like your success. Like you could post a picture with you in a nice house or Lambo, but they've got like a jet. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But they respect work. Like if you outwork your competitors and you're always showing up, I've noticed like people at the high levels, they're like, dude, I just see you doing stuff. I just see you executing. Like every time I'm at a thing, you're here or you're on the stage or you're doing this. And like, and then they want to be a part of what you're doing or help you or connect you with other people.
Yeah.
So I think like that's a big hack for people who feel like, hey, maybe I'm not getting the networking opportunities. I'm not connecting with the right people, or I'm not getting respect.
Yeah.
Like stop complaining about that and just do stuff.
Yeah.
Like I stopped trying to convince people like of like, hey, I'm a good dude, I'm hardworking. Just do it. And they'll see it. Like they'll take notice.
Yeah. Like I don't tell anyone I work hard.
Yeah, bro. They just see it.
Like, hey dude, like you should trust me. I work hard. It's
like,
just like
you want to get
more.
Yeah. And you want to get more speaking, because speaking's a big thing with building your brand and content and all these things. Go crush it.
Yeah.
Right. And then somebody
Be a great
will ask
speaker.
Yeah. I remember like I wanted to speak at WealthCon for years, but like, it wasn't good. So I'm not going to like text you and be like, hey bro, can you put me on the stage? I'm not that good. But like once I got good at a certain point, you're like, hey man, do you want to come to WealthCon? Great. So I got the opportunity and I met a lot of great people there.
Yeah.
And it's great footage for your brand. Like it's a win-win, right? You crush it for your audience, then I get something out of it too.
Yeah.
But then that leads to somebody there saw me.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, could you come to my event? Like, so like doing really good at the thing is the hack, man. There's like, yes, you can get shortcuts with networking, but like, there's no way that you're going to put me on if you think that I'm going to bomb.
Yeah.
Like it takes years and then you'll be like, hey, yeah, here's an opportunity for you.
And that I'm glad you're bringing up this point about just being excellent at what you do. And the Bible talks about this. I think it's in Colossians 3:23 of, do everything with excellence, not for humans, but for God.
Yeah.
Everything that you should do should just be out of excellence for him and glorifying him. And if that's putting on an event, doing a podcast, how I have my office set up, how we just do everything, how I carry myself. Like I want to carry myself with excellence. It's not pride. It's not any, it's just, that's what God commands us to do. If I'm a slob and I'm just like lackadaisical and whatever, it's like, that's representation of God. If I'm going to, speak about him, and it's like, that's not good. And so I think, opportunities come when you just do everything with excellence. And so I've talked about that with the podcast and everything else. I'm like, dude, when we have a new guest, we like want to be first class, give them a tour, interact with them, pick them up from the airport if they want us to, give them a gift bag, give them, all these different things, and just make it a first class experience. And, whether anything comes of it or not, it's just going to be first class, and that's going to be the standard. And I was just thinking, Ed Milet sent me a voice message like 2 days ago, and he was like, hey, I just want to let you know, I put your name down with this big group that I'm supposed to speak at, on this date, but I can't make it now, and they need a replacement. And so I want you to do it. And so they're going to contact you. And, I just want you to know that's just how much I respect you and everything else.
That's huge.
And so it's just like random opportunities based on track record of our interactions to this point.
Yeah. And then somebody will say, well, how'd you get that event? It's luck, right? Somebody dropped out. But then how are you in a position to capitalize on that? Because you're good at the thing, and people respect that.
Yeah.
Like Ed's like one of my, top influencers that's helped me in business journey, right? And so I think of always wanted to speak at an event with Ed. Like that'd be so cool. I've had him speak at our event, which is awesome, and he crushes it. It's amazing. But there's an event coming up in New Orleans next week, or 2 weeks from now, I think. And it was an industry event for mortgage industry. They hired Ed to be the keynote speaker. And then through a random interaction, bro, with somebody who is on their board, they saw me speak at another event and they asked me to speak there as well. So now I get to speak with Ed at this event because of just some random thing where somebody saw you crush it and now they're connecting you with this next opportunity. So like, I feel like people, when they talk about network and your network is your net worth, like that is true, but I think you also need to bring some value, like, and some skill, or even if you're not good at something, maybe you have the connections.
Yeah.
But there's got to be something that you bring to the table. Like it's not just like go network and then you'll be rich. Like what do you bring to the whole equation? And maybe you're just a really good person with great connections, or maybe you're skilled here. But I think like if you could level up yourself first, then like all the networking stuff will work more.
Yeah. And it just makes, when you do things with excellence, it makes people who you haven't done anything with yet, though, like they hear about it. Because I think back now, having done a lot of wealth cons, like recently knew people that have become friends. And like I thought about that with Tim Grover. He spoke, that might have been the one you were at. And I remember when I first hired him, he was like, I've heard a lot of good things about WealthCon. Like, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And it's like, where did he hear it from? I don't know where he heard it from, or like who told him.
This is your personal brand, is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Right.
What's your brand if you're not there? What are they saying about you, your events, your workshop, whatever?
And I didn't need to sell him on the event. It was just like, he's like, no, I've heard about it. I've had some friends that have spoken at your event. They've all said great things. So let's do it.
Yeah. And then for like the person watching or listening who's like, well, dude, I don't host events. I just have customers. I'm a realtor, or I'm a lender, or whatever it is. Bro, like, these people talk about their experience working with you.
Oh yeah, your customers.
It's one family. It's one group. What are they saying about you afterwards? If they're not fans, like you just said, what's the gift afterwards? Like, what is the customer experience of working with you like? you'd be surprised how easy it is to smoke the competition if you just go like a little bit further.
Right.
Like I walked in here, my name's on the screen.
Yeah.
Dude, we took a video of it. Like we're going to put it in the highlight. Like that's dope. Like most people don't do that shit.
I don't know anyone else that does.
Yeah. Maybe I've seen it once in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So then now it puts you in a different category. How hard is that? You know, well, obviously you got to have a $20,000 screen, but like
40,000.
Okay. Yeah. But if you didn't have that, could you do it on the TV? Like at your office.
You could do it some way, somehow.
Bro, at your office right now, somebody's like, I have people come in for a client meeting. What if you had something on them welcoming, even if you don't have the photo, what if it just said welcome Adam's family or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, would that make them feel more special? Like, what are the little things you could do to improve the experience?
Well, and I'll tell you too, like, so most people are starting from scratch. And so I'm starting from scratch going into the church world. Yeah. And so I'm about to throw all these events at churches, right? And so we've only done it once at one church so far.
And I heard that was amazing.
Yeah. And it's only because I attended there for 10 years. And so like, you know, it was easy to get it done. But I've come up against now, like going and trying to get these events booked. I'm like, I'm ready to go. What I realized is these churches, they don't know me. They don't trust me yet. I'm just some money-making guru guy, you know? And so there's going to be inherent conflict. And most churches plan out like a year in advance. Yeah. So for me to try and get an event scheduled here in the next couple of months is like been way harder than I thought. I just didn't know that until I got into it, right?
Yeah.
But like right after this call, I have a meeting with a pastor in Seattle. I just had one in Houston. I'm literally meeting with pastors every day, you know, trying to figure out who's going to like, how do I fill this schedule up? Because I want to do these events. Yeah. And I want to partner with pastors who we align with, you know, and who understand the vision of what we're trying to do. But it's this whole new thing. And I understand right now I'm starting from zero in this arena.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to be harder, but you know what? 2 years from now, if I crush it, if we do these events with excellence and honor, these pastors will tell their friends and they'll say, dude, you need to have like Ryan come and hold one at your church. We got so many new business people at our church like Neel who weren't going before, and now they're all in, and it's amazing for our community and everything else. Like you got to have them.
Yeah. And
but so that's I know that's the process, but it's hard right now.
Yeah, but it's like you got good at the thing, and now you can ask for the opportunities, and you can meet with people and do it. And that's the part. Like I think people, they kind of want to skip to the good stuff.
Yeah. Like, why doesn't everyone ask me to speak at their event? I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know if people realize this. You have to ask. Like,
that too.
Yeah. Go, like, you got to go try and get the opportunity. I remember one of the bigger events I got to in the beginning was Cole Hatter had an event in Vegas called Thrive for many years. He hasn't done it in a while, but at the last time he did it, it was huge. It was like, I think 2,000 people at MGM. Mm-hmm. And they had all the big speakers like Jesse Itzler and all these guys, and Jim Grover was there, and Jim Quick, all these authors and stuff. And I asked him, and he's like, no, like, bro, you're not, like, we're full, you can't speak here. And I remember being like, well, we haven't met yet, but like, here's some shared connections. So I had, you know, his friends let him know, like, hey, Neel's a good dude.
Yeah, Neel's legit.
He's legit. And then send him samples of your work. So he knows, like, anybody's doing this, they take it seriously. Yeah. They don't want to like put somebody out there who's going to not level up the event.
And that's, I mean, by the way, this never stops.
Yes.
So like we were talking about Dan Martell earlier. That's literally what he did to connect with me. And Dan's way further along than me in the business world, but he wasn't in social media at the time. And I just didn't know him or anything. And so he tried to connect through multiple connections. And finally, it was the last connection through Pete Vargas where Pete's like, no, Ryan, like you just need to do it. And Pete was somebody I trusted more than the other people that were trying to connect us. And I'm like, okay, Pete, if you say so, then let's go.
Yeah. And then one tip on how to really like put gas on this is like, if you're at an event, so say you work your butt off to get to speak at something. Now you're on the list of people who maybe are like 10 steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
You know, like how could you use that event as leverage to get the next one?
Yeah.
Or also to connect with them. So for example, I was speaking at WealthCon. Dan was speaking at WealthCon. Right. So he's going to be in Vegas. So then I message him and say, hey, it's Neel. We haven't met yet.
I'm speaking at WealthCon. We're peers.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Dan's worth like way more than me, bro. Like I'm like, my net worth looks like nothing compared to Dan's. But hey, we're peers. We're speaking at WealthCon. We have a shared friend, Ryan Pineda.
Yeah.
Could we do a podcast? Immediate yes.
Yeah.
So then I got to spend an hour and a half with Dan doing a podcast, which we just
and
released.
I think, and you probably don't know this, but behind the scenes, Dan asked me when he was coming, he's like, hey, I'm going to be in Vegas. Like, whose podcast should I be on?
Yeah.
And I was like, you should check out my friend Neel. You should check out this guy. And,
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah. It's like, I remember trying to get speakers at our event. Some of the best speakers, you've seen this too, you can't get them. Like, there's no fee.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just not interested in doing it. Like, I know you had Lewis Howes at your event.
Yeah.
If I try and hire Lewis Howes, he's not speaking.
Yeah.
He just says, I'm not doing it.
Yep.
Like, there's no money that you can hire him.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know him. You have to be a friend.
Yeah. When I had him at the event, he was like, this is the first event I've spoke at since COVID.
Yeah. He just doesn't do them, and he's not interested in traveling and doing all that stuff. He's got other things.
Yep.
So if you really wanted to have him come speak, you got to know somebody who knows him, or you got to know him.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed that is the shortcut, is like, hey, Ryan, could you let Lewis know that I'm legit and I do a great job? And then now all of a sudden they trust you.
Yeah.
And it's like one connection.
But you have to be legit for me to trust you.
Exactly.
Because there are people who ask me all the time, hey, can you? I'm like, no.
You're not going to put yourself, like, if you connected somebody who sucks.
Yeah.
Now you get blamed.
I suck.
Yes. So like, nobody's going to do this for you unless you're good.
Yeah.
So the key is get good, then level up your network, then ask people for help. Like, people ask me for help. I ask other people for help. And everybody I noticed in the circle, if you are legit, they're happy to help.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to help anybody who's legit.
Yep.
The parts that suck and where it's awkward is when somebody sucks and they ask you. That's an awkward conversation.
Yeah, this is gonna be a no.
Yeah, I'm just getting better at candor now, of like being like, dude, I would, but I need you to get really good at this first.
Yeah.
Like, you're not there yet. Like, and I'm not saying I'm the best either.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, you got to get better before you'll get the opportunity. Because I've had people ask me for favors and things like that, and it's just not there.
Yeah. You're nicer than me.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no.
You'll just tell them no.
Yeah, I'm just like, nah. And they're like, okay.
Did they ask why?
Yeah, well, and I don't ignore people either.
Yeah.
Like, so some people just ghost you. Be like, dude, can I? I'm like, nah, it's full.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's all good. And then it's just, I don't know. Everything in life, right? You gotta provide value in some way, right? So, I've got people who have done lots of coaching and different things with me, and I'm like, all right, dude, like, I want to reward this person, man, because they're bought into what we're doing. And so I'll put my students or clients or something on stage. And then,
I saw that at the last event. There's a few people speaking who I've seen at every single one of your events.
Yeah, like, I want to reward them, know, versus some guy out of the blue who's never done anything with me. That's, it's like, bro, being successful is a requirement. It's not anything special.
Yeah.
To speak on this, like, well, yeah, of course everyone is. So what else you got?
Yeah.
Have you done anything with us? Do you got a huge following? Do we connect in some other way? Or are you just some successful guy? Like, I can go, you're a dime a dozen.
Yeah. And then this is another hack, is if you want to connect with somebody who's maybe a few rungs up on the ladder from you, if they do offer something, programs, events, something, buy it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like,
just go buy their thing.
It's like, bro, like, what have you ever done with us? And you want to, I don't owe you anything.
So then now the request looks totally different. If I'm like, hey Ryan, what's going on, man? Love WealthCon. I've been a VIP ticket holder for the last 2.
Exactly.
Met great people. Hey, dude, I do this thing. I would love to have the opportunity to work with you guys.
Yeah.
You have your attention now, versus just coming out cold and being like, hey, dude, let's do this.
But the problem is with most of those people, it's 1000% entitlement. They think they deserve to be there with the rest of the people because maybe they are making as much, or maybe they're successful, or maybe they're more successful. I go, but that still doesn't, once again, there's lots of people just as successful as you. What have you done to deserve it to be with me?
Yeah.
And
this goes all the way up to like the top. Like, if I'm trying to reach out to Cardone.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm a customer of one of his programs, or I've been to one of their retreats.
Oh yeah,
dude, he'll actually respond.
Oh, for sure.
Because I think of like a hierarchy. It's like, it's their family first, then it's their employees.
Yeah.
Their organization. Next step down on the ladder is customers.
Yep.
Then it's the general public.
Yep.
So if you're in the general public, you want Gen Pop, you want to go up one ladder.
Become a customer.
Just become a customer, bro.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, like, even the customer of the regular ticket to that event, gets a response.
You've done something.
Everybody appreciates their customers. Anybody who's like a good person in the business, they appreciate their customer.
Yeah. I'll say that's one of the things that annoy me about affiliates, people who want you to affiliate stuff. I'm like, what have you done to ask me this? Well, dude, you can make a lot of money. Have you supported anything that we've done to this point?
Yeah.
Have you bought a sponsor at WealthCon? Have you bought anything? Have you referred us any like, why you gonna come here asking me for this stuff? You haven't done anything for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing people just have to realize is when you come with that kind of request, it's entitlement. Like you just think that people owe you something because of, I don't know why, but you just think nobody owes you anything in life. You know, Cardone doesn't owe me anything. You know, like at the end of the day, if I want to figure out how I can get into his world, I need to provide him value some way because he doesn't need me.
Yeah.
So what can I do to provide him value?
Yeah. And that's I think even like this as an example, I think the first time I interacted with you, I just bought something.
Yeah.
I bought a coaching package.
Yep.
And then you threw in a podcast or something. We did something together.
Yep.
That's the first interaction I had. You could be like, hey, dude, you shouldn't have to pay to do that. Well, that's just the way it is because nobody knows you.
Yeah, and you just don't know how serious anyone is. And
yeah,
so it is a filter.
It's a filter to see who's serious. Also, it's a way to jump into somebody's schedule.
Yeah.
You know, like some of the biggest names I've connected with over the years started with a paid interaction. I was in their mastermind.
Yep.
I was in their program.
Mm-hmm.
I bought their NFT. I don't know, whatever it was,
Yeah.
you know, like there's always some way in.
Yep.
And so then part of it is like the value you're going to get from that program. I know I'm going to get value because I'm going to meet people. I'm going to execute. My goal is anytime I buy something, I want to be like the success story of that program.
Yeah.
And then what
You'll
happens?
get value from any program, by the way. It's you.
It's you. It's like 100% you.
Yeah.
It's squeaky wheel gets the grease too.
Yep.
And then I found once you're in the program, ask for help.
Yeah.
Dude, if you bought someone's group and you're in there and you're like, dude, I'm really struggling with this. Can you guys help me? You're the first freaking person they'll help.
Yeah.
Like just ask. I'm shocked at how many people are in programs. They don't say a word.
Yep.
Then they'll go make a video online and be like, I got nothing, got ripped off. I'm like, bro, you didn't even speak. Did you do anything?
Yeah.
The ball's in your hands.
Yep.
Like go talk to somebody, go ask somebody, ask the people hosting it to help. And then obviously people ask too much for things. Like then it becomes like entitlement needy.
Yep.
But like there's a level of like, dude, you can ask for help and you'll get it.
Yep.
And you can provide value and you'll get it. And if you don't have any value to provide, just buy somebody's thing.
Yep.
And then now you'll get the help.
Now you've given them value.
That's it. That is value.
Yeah. You've given them
You
value.
supported their
You've paid
business.
it. You've supported what they're doing.
There was a dude right now who I wanted to come speak to our group on financial literacy and the markets and all these things. He's a guy on Fox News and he's been doing all this stuff. And I met him at an event.
Yeah.
And I DM'd him and texted him and stuff, and he didn't respond. He's not being a dick, but I'm not on his radar.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed he was hosting an event in Nashville last year. And so I just bought a ticket.
Yeah.
I DM'd him, asked him if he'd come speak to my group. He's like, sure.
Yeah. You supported.
I'm like, bro, and this dude is worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
He didn't need my $1,000 ticket.
Yep.
But it was just the fact that I showed support before I asked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like then he's like, okay.
I'm in.
I'm in, bro. So like then he gets to go look at your stuff. Then he asks, hey, do you know Neel? Like, oh yeah, he's a great dude. Cool. Now you're in.
Yeah.
But the filter sometimes is just taking that first step and doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice a lot of people complain, but they haven't actually knocked on enough doors, got rejected enough times.
No, and that's why I'm
spent
saying
enough
like
money. What have you done?
I know like with this pastor thing, and I'm trying to get into churches, like I'm going to have to give them a ton of value and really show. They don't have to open their church to me. Once again, I go to it like nobody owes me anything. These pastors don't owe me anything. It doesn't matter about my following or any of this stuff. I got to come in with open arms and say, hey, this is the amount of value I'm going to provide. While if you just let us throw this event here, I'm going to push so many business people to your church. I'm going to edify you, honor you, let you speak. Like, it's going to be an amazing experience. And so it's just always been my mindset because it works. And so like in every endeavor, whether I'm in an industry where everyone knows me or I'm in an industry that's new to me.
Yeah.
So anyways, dude, I appreciate you, man. It was great Great talking to you again. We'll link to your socials and everything down below, so they can go follow you. But
thanks, man.
Dude, it's been fun. I'm excited to see your journey, especially in faith.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, bro.
Yep. Cool. All right, guys, we're out. Peace.